Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My dad and my mom divorced when I was 6. A few years later, Dad met and married my stepmom, Linda, 60 female, who already had an older daughter, Sophie, 14 at the time. On paper, it was perfect. My little brother and I gained a new mom, and Sophie gained a bigger family. In reality, it was complicated. My dad adored Sophie in a way that sometimes made me feel invisible. He doted on her grades, praised her achievements, and bent over backward to shield her from any hardship. Meanwhile, my brother and I grew accustomed to being the forgotten kids. Still loved, but always secondary to the narrative of helping Sophie adjust. I never blamed Sophie. She was just a teenager navigating life. But I couldn't ignore the message. Dad's compassion was finite, and Sophie consumed almost all of it. As I grew into adulthood, I watched Sophie stumble through one failed relationship after another, each breakup more dramatic than the last. She'd cry in the kitchen after a date went south, beg my dad for financial bailouts, and demand emotional support whenever her life fell apart. Dad always dropped everything for her, even if that meant canceling plans or bending rules. Meanwhile, my brother and I learned to fend for ourselves. When I met my fiance, Mark, at 24, I thought I'd stumbled into fairy tale territory. We connected instantly, shared humor, shared dreams, and a mutual love of spontaneous road trips. He treated me with respect and kindness, never minimizing my family drama, but offering a safe, stable haven. After 6 months, I decided to introduce him to my father and Linda at their home. That evening, Dad greeted us at the door with polite warmth. Once we settled at the dining table, Mark and I shared stories about our weekend trip to a nearby art fair. But Linda and Sophie sat the entire meal in tense silence. They neither asked Mark about his work, nor offered him friendly conversation. Dad looked increasingly uncomfortable, offering Sophie quiet reassurance instead of joining our banter. By dessert, the emotional distance was palpable. My fiancé felt unwelcome, and I felt my father choosing Sophie's unhappiness over my joy. The next morning, Dad called to say that, until Sophie was coping better, Mark was no longer welcome at their house. He assured me I could still visit alone. Apparently, Sophie's heart is breaking watching me happy. She's never had it. He said, "Can you imagine how that looks to her? Every time you walk in here glowing, she's reminded of what she doesn't have." In effect, he had built a wall between my happiness and his home. I was shocked and heartbroken as never. Over the next 6 months, Dad maintained his distance. He still called, but our visits stopped. Holidays became awkward. I opted to spend Christmas at Mark's parents' home. When Mark proposed on a mountaintop at sunrise, my favorite spot in the world, I asked Dad to share the news. He answered with a sigh. "Look, Em, I know this is important, but can we keep it quiet for a bit? Let me prepare Sophie." "Prepare her?" I said, stunned. "Prepare her how?" "She'll be upset. You know she can't handle big emotions. Wait until after the holidays?" I realized he was asking me to hide the best news of my life, so I wouldn't upset his stepdaughter. The betrayal stung deeper than any insult. How could he demand secrecy? How could he put my joy on hold to spare Sophie's feelings? I balked. "No, Dad, you can't ask that," he snapped. "We'll talk later." And he hung up. That was the last time I spoke to him directly about the engagement. Instead, I shared the news on social media and with friends. Dad unfollowed me online within minutes. I never heard from him again. I knew Dad wouldn't attend. I double and triple checked with him, but each time he reiterated the same reasoning. "Sophie can't face it. I can't force her to watch you walk down the aisle while she's miserable." He offered condolences. "Maybe I can be there for the reception." But only if Sophie felt up to it. It was humiliating, like I was a second-class daughter. So, we planned a small wedding 200 miles away, at a vineyard I'd always loved. We kept the guest list tight. Close friends, my mom, and all of Mark's family. On a sunny October day, I married the love of my life with my mom officiating, and no hint of my dad's absence beyond the empty seat. I still remember walking down the aisle, cheeks wet with tears of joy. I wish Dad had been there. But mainly, I felt relief that I was finally prioritizing my happiness. After the wedding, I blocked Dad's number. I told him through my mom that I needed space. I felt abandoned, used as a pawn to spare Sophie's feelings. In my mind, if he didn't support my happiness, he didn't deserve to be part of my life. I never heard from him. The first couple of years felt liberating. I focused on my career, bought a condo with Mark, and traveled. I learned to let go of the hurt, convincing myself that cutting him out was the healthiest decision. I maintained that barrier for 10 years. Last year, life delivered its own reversal. My stepmother, Linda, succumbed to a sudden illness and passed away. Dad was shattered, losing the woman he had shared the past 3 decades with. Sophie, having moved to college years earlier, fell in love and became so absorbed in her own life that she drifted away too. Apparently, calls went unanswered, visits were canceled, and her childhood bond with him unraveled. For the first time, Dad found himself truly alone in the house where he once ruled with Sophie at his side. Then one afternoon, I received his email. "Emma, losing Linda and watching Sophie pull away has shown me how badly I failed you. I was wrong to ask you to hide your happiness. I miss you and hope you can forgive me. Dad." For a moment, my heart ached. I thought about the wounded little girl who hungered for her father's unconditional love. But the words felt too little, too late. I knew a true apology would have named each injury: my banished fiance, my secret engagement, my missing wedding. Not just whispered that he'd been wrong, so I deleted the message without replying. A week later, my grandmother, Dad's mother, called me. She'd heard through the family grapevine that Dad had reached out, and was devastated I'd ignored him. "Emma," she said, voice quivering, "your father's heart is broken. He has no one else. How could you abandon him like that? You're his only child." I explained as calmly as I could why I'd chosen no contact. I reminded her that Dad had explicitly placed his daughter's happiness below his stepdaughter's feelings, and had never apologized for that. I told Grandma how much Dad had hurt me, how I had tried to respect myself and build a life without his interference. But Grandma wouldn't hear it. "Emma, you're young. You'll regret this. There's no excuse for turning your back on family. You're being selfish. A good daughter forgives her father." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I knew Grandma loved me, but she was unforgiving here. In her eyes, a child must always respect and care for her parent, no matter what. My rationale, that I was protecting my own well-being, mattered little. After that call, I considered replying to Dad. Maybe I could say, "I'm sorry for your pain. I understand your apology, but I can't forgive someone who chose another daughter's feelings over his own." But each time I drafted a response, I deleted it. I realized that I deserved peace more than he deserved closure with me. I've since moved across the country. I'm happily married with a toddler daughter, and my life is full. I focus my energy on parenting and supporting my mom, who understands and was always on my side. I'm in therapy, untangling the shame Grandma heaped on me, learning that it's okay to set boundaries, even with parents. As for Dad, I haven't reached out. I suspect that if he truly wanted reconciliation, he would have offered a more sincere, detailed apology, acknowledging specific hurts rather than a perfunctory "I was wrong." Instead, he sent a generic plea that felt self-serving. Given the history, I can't risk reopening old wounds. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole? OP is not the a-hole. OP's dad's demand that she hides her engagement and wedding from Sophie was a clear violation of OP's right to share life's happiest moments without shame. OP tried to include him, and he chose to placate someone else's insecurities instead of celebrating his own daughter's joy. Maintaining a decade-long boundary was an act of self-respect, not spite. No one should have to dim their light for someone else's shadow, especially by their own father's request. And now let's hear community's opinion. Not the a-hole. You offered every opportunity for reconciliation, sharing your milestones, inviting him to your wedding, even sending that heartfelt note afterward. And each time he prioritized protecting Sophie over supporting you. Walking away and building a life free from that conditional love was both brave and necessary. You reclaimed your narrative instead of allowing him to keep you on emotional hold. Not the a-hole. Forgiveness doesn't automatically erase years of pain, and his late three-line apology feels more like a band-aid than genuine atonement. A meaningful apology would have acknowledged exactly how he hurt you. Banning your fiance, missing your wedding, ignoring your happiness, not just whimsically asking for forgiveness. You owe him compassion, yes, but you also owe yourself the peace that only true accountability can bring. Not the a-hole. It's understandable that grandma views family duty differently, but your top priority must be your own well-being and emotional safety. Reopening contact risks, replaying old wounds of conditional acceptance, and you deserve a relationship built on genuine celebration of your joy. Keep protecting your boundaries. Lean on the family who supports you unconditionally. And let time, and real change, prove whether your father's remorse is more than words. I was devastated when I found out that my ex-boyfriend had started dating my sister. It was a total shock, and I couldn't believe that he would do something like that. I had always trusted him, and now it felt like he had betrayed me in the worst way possible. At first, I tried to ignore it and pretend that everything was okay. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, and I hoped that he would come to his senses and realize that it was wrong to date his ex-girlfriend's sister. But as time went on, it became harder and harder to keep my feelings bottled up. One day, he sent me a message with a picture of him and my sister on a romantic vacation. He wrote, "Wish you were here," and it made me feel sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe that he was rubbing his new relationship in my face like that. As the weeks went on, things got worse. He started sending me more and more pictures and messages, trying to make me jealous. He would talk about how happy he was with my sister and how great their relationship was. It was like he was trying to prove something to me. One day he sent me a message that changed everything. He wrote, "I still have feelings for you, you know. If you want to get back together, all you have to do is sleep with me." I was shocked and disgusted. How could he even suggest something like that? It was bad enough that he was dating my sister, but now he was trying to blackmail me into sleeping with him. I couldn't believe it. I begged him not to do this. I told him that he was hurting both me and my sister, and that he needed to stop playing games. But he wouldn't listen. He just kept sending me messages and pictures, trying to make me jealous and upset. Finally, I decided that I had had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. I told my sister what was going on, hoping that she would understand and break up with him. But she didn't. She accused me of trying to break them up and refused to believe that he could be capable of such a thing. I felt so alone and isolated. My ex-boyfriend was still sending me messages and pictures, trying to get me to sleep with him. My sister was angry at me and refused to acknowledge that anything was wrong. I didn't know what to do. In the end, I decided that the best thing for me was to cut ties with both of them. I blocked my ex-boyfriend's number and deleted him from all my social media accounts. I stopped talking to my sister altogether. It was painful and hard, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. Years have gone by since then, but the memories still haunt me. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had given in to his demands. Would things have turned out differently? Would I be with him now, instead of living with the regret and pain of what happened? But then I remember that I made the right choice. I stood up for myself and refused to be blackmailed, and that's something that I can be proud of. Wow, he sounds crazy. He used your sister to get you back? Are they still together? They both betrayed you in a truly unforgivable way, and blocking them was the right move. Well, it sounds like he and her are actually meant for each other. They're both rotten, horrible people. I suggest that you take screenshots of everything that he sent to you and send it to her, and then block her, and also while you're at it, make sure you block him too. There's no need to keep any kind of contact with either of them. Also, I would send the screenshots to your parents so they know exactly what their other daughter is like, and just be done with her and him. So I, 23 female, and my husband, 23 male, got married in November. We are both happy and live in the house we bought before we got married. We are not currently trying to have a baby, but we aren't necessarily opposed to getting pregnant. We've been talking about it for about a year, and we both agree that we don't want to wait a super long time to start trying. Last month I had felt off and had super bad morning sickness, so I decided to take a pregnancy test, and it was positive. I was super excited, and so was my husband. I made a doctor appointment, and when I got the blood work back, it was determined that I had a chemical pregnancy. I had gotten myself so worked up that I was heartbroken. We decided not to tell our families because my mother is the kind of person that thinks you should be married for at least a year before trying to have kids. So I didn't really want to get into it. A few weeks later, we had to go to the bank to get my mom's name off my bank account. It's been that way since I was 17, and put my husband's name on it. My mom offered to pick us up since she would be driving past our house to get to the bank. We agreed and didn't think anything of it. On the car ride there, my mom started talking about our finances. She said that we spend too much money and need to start budgeting. She says this pretty much every time we see her, but this time she was getting on to my husband, saying that he needs to do a better job at supporting me and suggesting that he get a second job. Side note, he just had started a new job after being let go from a job where he made $26 an hour for reasons that were not his fault. I decided that I was not going to put up with this, and it soon turned into a screaming match between me and my mom. Once it calmed down, she said, "I know about your OBGYN appointment. I hope you aren't pregnant." I immediately burst into tears and said, "I was, but now I'm not." Her response was, "Good. It breaks my heart to think of you having a baby right now. You are too immature and not financially stable enough." The rest of the car ride was silent. Now, this past weekend, my brother, 25 male, and his wife, 24 female, who have been married for almost 3 years, announced their pregnancy, and my mom was beyond excited. She was screaming, jumping up and down, saying, "My first grandbaby." I acted the best I could and hugged them both and congratulated them. I excused myself to the bathroom when everyone was talking. No one was paying attention to me, so I didn't think anything of it. I collected myself and went back to join the party. Everyone was still excited and happy, and I assumed everything was fine. The next day, my mom calls me and proceeded to say how rude I was that I made everyone uncomfortable and therefore stealing their spotlight. I didn't even know what to say, so I just said, "I'm sorry," and hung up. I haven't said anything to anyone since, but my mom is still texting me demanding I apologize to my brother and sister-in-law. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. My husband was at the announcement. According to him, no one even turned around to see I wasn't there. They were all talking to each other. My mom is the only one who noticed, so there's that. Not the a-hole. I think you need to put a lot of distance between your mom and you. She met you with cruelty when you needed comfort. I do think that calling your brother might be a good idea, though. Not to apologize or give an explanation, because neither are warranted. Just to probably reaffirm that you are happy for them. It's definitely okay to feel disappointment in your own situation while feeling happy for someone else. I do hope you talk about your feelings with someone you trust, though. Not the a-hole. I hope your mom no longer has access to any of your finances. Personally, I would cut her off if she can't be supportive. Excusing yourself is not making it about you. You were kind and respectful. Also, I am sorry for your loss. I had a 10-week loss in October and still can't do pregnancy announcements and have distanced myself from them for my mental health. Oh my God, you're an adult. Your husband is an adult. Your mother doesn't get to have a say in your and your husband's important life decisions. She only gets to give advice, and that's even only when asked. You need to have a conversation with your mom about how now that you are trying to build your life together with your husband, she needs to let you do just that. Tell her you'll ask for advice when you need help, but let you do this on your own first. Honestly, she doesn't sound like the kind of person who would understand or listen to this. But I don't know you or your mom, so I'm trying very hard not to say, cut her off. Not the a-hole, OP. Years ago, my girlfriend, let's call her Amy, hooked up with a friend of hers who we will call John. He moved away from the country, and when he came back to visit is when they hooked up and she got pregnant. After he went back, she found out she's pregnant and told him. He ended up buying her a house a few months later so they don't have to worry about rent, and he sends her $2,000 a month. She has a job and doesn't ask for a penny more, since her sister also lives with her and pays some bills. From what she says, they have a great relationship and talk a few times a year over the phone. But they are not together, and he encouraged her to find someone nice, since he will be the absent father. His grandparents live here and take her daughter, Remy, every Friday and Saturday, so she can focus on being young and having fun. She told me that for the past 2 years, him and his twin sister have been flying in to see Remy for her birthday. Her 4th birthday is in a month, and she said they will come again this year as well for 3 days. I've been dating Amy for 10 months and have never met John. She told me that when he arrives, she wants it to be a family event with her parents and his grandparents coming over for the party, and that John and his sister will stay at the house with Amy and her sister. I'm supposed to hang out at my place for the 3 days and not go over there. This made me angry. I will admit that I got jealous that her and John will be at the same house for 3 days, and I am supposed to be okay with her not wanting me around. She got very upset and said that he bought the house and only sees Remy once or twice a year. She wants him and his sister at the house to spend as much time with Remy as possible. I thought that maybe he had some power over her because of the house, but the house is in her name, not his. When she asked him if her sister could live with her, he said, "It's your house, you don't need my permission." I asked her why she doesn't want me there, and she said that we haven't been dating a year, so she wants it to be family only. These seem to be her decisions. I told her I don't want him staying there with her for 3 days. We got into a fight and words were spoken. "You're the a-hole. She is putting her child first. That's what you should expect when you date a mother." Sounds like the guy is showing up at least financially after an accidental pregnancy. Both of them sound like decent and respectful people acting maturely, which will show up any tantrum you throw in high contrast. Go ahead and cause a scene, but don't expect the relationship to last. Unless you can honor this woman's responsibilities and history, you won't work out. Yep, you're the a-hole. It is a house he bought for the mother of his child and his child. John is supporting his child like a proper parent should, and is being involved in her life as he can. He will be in Amy's life for a lot longer as they share parentage of a child. Regardless of the above, you don't get to dictate to Amy who she can have in her house. What is next? If Amy does decide to stay with you, will you be one of the step-parents where your child is more important than another man's child? Grow up. You're the a-hole. She gave you a reason, and that reason is why she doesn't view it as serious enough with you to jeopardize the relationship she has with him and he has with his child. Good on her for establishing that boundary with you. I think you probably need to evaluate where you are actually at in this relationship. Clearly, you two are not aligned. I, 26 female, recently got married. My older sister and I were always close, but last year she was tragically taken from me in a car crash. Planning my wedding really broke my heart because I always imagined her being a big part of it. It wasn't the same without her. I had come up with this idea that if my brother-in-law was okay with it, I would wear my sister's wedding dress, which my brother-in-law agreed, and even cried seeing me in it. I looked beautiful. My husband loved it. My brother-in-law did, but my family did not feel the same way. My mother told me it was disrespectful wearing my sister's dress, and that I was just reminding everyone of a life lost. Then she said that it was a line I shouldn't have crossed. My other two sisters also gave me weird looks. After my honeymoon, I posted some wedding pics on Facebook, and my mom and sister had commented, saying things like how I shouldn't have chose that dress. I confronted my mother and said she was my sister and her husband was okay with it, so why is she so strung up on it? She then replied that she was her daughter and that I should have had my own dress for the wedding, not her deceased daughter's, and that I was insensitive and it's not what my sister would have wanted. I looked good in the dress, and I know my sister would have thought the same thing. No one else had an issue with it. You didn't warn your mom? She turned around to see you walking down the aisle wearing her deceased daughter's dress, bringing back all of the memories and all that she lost. You're the a-hole for not warning her. That seems incredibly cruel. And saying you looked good in the dress is weird. That's not really relevant. Soft, you're the a-hole. I think consulting your brother-in-law was great, but you should have consulted your mother too. If you really think about it, your brother-in-law was related to you by marriage only. Your sister was related by blood. She was part of your family since birth. There's a different bond there. You should have talked to your mother first. It was insensitive of you to not run it by her before the wedding for her approval. You're the a-hole. Since you invited your sisters and mother to your wedding, you should have warned them, at least, that you would be wearing your dead sister's wedding gown. Even though you have issues with your mom, and your living sisters, I guess, you shouldn't have wanted to surprise them like this. That was cruel. In a best-case scenario, you should have asked them if it would be okay with them, or if it would be too tough on them. But at the very least, you should have warned them. Me, 32 female. My daughter, 5. My stepbrother Teddy's, 34. Wife Lisa, 32 female. And their son Sam, 7. We're traveling to South Africa to visit family. I was also traveling with someone who works for us, Jake. Teddy was already in South Africa, with Lisa and I going later because of school term dates. We booked the flights separately. I spoke to Teddy about which flight would work, but that's all the coordination we had. For long-haul flights, I always fly first class. My daughter is a better flyer that way, as there's less people, she has more space, and it abates my travel anxiety. My family know I fly first class for long hauls, so I didn't feel the need to bring this up prior to the flight. We carpooled to the airport, but first class has a separate check-in. Lisa was surprised I was flying first class and said surely my daughter is old enough to behave herself in economy. I said it wasn't about behaving. No one likes being boxed into a seat for 11 hours, 5 or 85. Lisa said she didn't like it either, and that it was unbelievable I paid for a seat for staff and a child just because I couldn't handle sitting in economy. I told her whether she finds it believable or not, that is the case. Again, I tried to start going to my check-in, but Lisa started saying how now she had to deal with Sam alone for the whole flight, which she wasn't prepared for, and that she stressed enough without having no help the whole time. She was getting close to tears by this point, and I was at a total loss what to do. I apologized for the confusion, but she wasn't satisfied, saying this is no way to treat family. Eventually, she just snapped, "Why can't you just stop being so spoiled?" in a shrill tone, which I'll admit, I didn't take well. I just said, "Why can't you just stop being so broke?" See how dumb that sounds? Worry about your issues, I'll worry about mine. I took the opportunity to make my exit and check in. When we met up with Teddy, Lisa was in a horrible mood and wouldn't speak to me. Later, Teddy and I were talking, and he said I shouldn't have said what I did, to which I said his wife shouldn't have melted down in the airport over my travel arrangements. I wasn't going to be babysitting Sam even if I had sat in economy. It would have made no difference to her, and she's well aware how I travel. She's still not speaking to me over a week later. My stepdad said I was in the right, and she's melodramatic. My mother says I probably should have just walked away without saying anything. I don't think I'm the a-hole for making a statement as ridiculous as hers, to point out that my lifestyle wasn't any more her business than hers is mine. Teddy wasn't offended. He knows I'm not actually commenting on their financial situation, just her whining. But Lisa is now making things so complicated, I'm not sure if she's overreacting or if I took it too far. So she assumed you would help her with her child for the duration of the flight, without discussing it with you first, knowing you have your own child with you too. Wow, nervy and presumptive. I'd say your reaction was justified. You were swatting down her green-eyed monster attack. Not the a-hole. Hope she learned a lesson. I missed the part where you asked Lisa to pay for some portion of your trip, because otherwise, it's none of her business what class ticket you bought. When did people become so enraged with the choices other people make? Oh yeah, she was hoping Jake or you would help her with her own child. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You are separate families, separate households, separate incomes, separate daily lives. You didn't purchase seats together. She never had any reason to assume you would even be seated near her, even if you were in economy. This is her expectations disappointing her and putting responsibilities on you that she shouldn't have. She can be upset all she wants for having to sit alone in economy with her own child, but that doesn't make it your problem in first class with your own child.